There are moments in fiction that just define a generation. Moments of absolute terrifying control. The kind of sequence where a towering intellect plays a flawless game of multidimensional chess only to have the entire board flipped in a single devastating instant. You know the exact scene we're talking about. The climax inside that rusted yellow box warehouse. That momentary flash of impending victory suddenly and brutally extinguished. The silence that follows in that space is heavy. It's irreversible. And it's absolute.
Light Yagami died trying to prove his divinity. But tonight, in this analysis, we're asking a completely different question. What happens if he chose to forget his divinity entirely? We are going to explore the ultimate what-if scenario, a deeply tragic twist on the hubris that caused the downfall of anime's greatest mastermind.
Section 1. The Flawed Reality, the Hubris of a God.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand how Light could have achieved the ultimate, unassailable victory in this alternate narrative, we first need to look at the baseline canon timeline and analyze exactly what went wrong. The continued commercial success of the manga and the deep tradition of fan rewrites, they both stem from just how meticulously constructed this original plan was and how painfully it fell apart. Step 1. Manipulate Nier into finding a fake notebook. Step 2. Teru Mikami waits outside with the real Death Note, furiously writing the names of everyone inside. But because of a fatal lack of communication triggered by Mello's chaotic kidnapping of Takada, Mikami breaks his rigid routine. Nier's agent flawlessly copies the real notebook overnight, and just like that, Light's absolute control, meticulously built over years of psychological warfare, is shattered in a single afternoon.
Which brings us to this terrifying number, 40. Light was so completely blinded by his own towering ego that he prematurely declared victory before those 40 seconds were even up. Just imagine the internal panic, the sheer psychological terror during those agonizing seconds ticking by. 38, 39, 40. The warehouse remains completely silent. Nobody dies. The realization crashes down that the flawless system has failed. It is a jarring, frankly pathetic downfall of Kira's hubris, ending with a self-proclaimed god writhing on a dirty floor, exposed, screaming, and bleeding out. The stark contrast between his supreme confidence at second 1 and his absolute devastation at second 41. It's the defining tragedy of his character.
Ultimately, Light died because he held on to the power of the Death Note until the bitter end. He needed Nier to look him in the eye and know with absolute certainty that he had lost to Kira. It was a definitive defeat driven entirely by arrogance and a desperate need for validation. But understanding this catastrophic failure, well, it paves the way for us to ask a far more chilling question. How could sacrificing that very power, sacrificing the validation itself, change absolutely everything?
Section 2. The Memory Erasure, the Ultimate Gambit.
This marks a massive tonal shift in our analysis. I want you to imagine this next sequence not as a battle of wits, but as a tense, unfolding psychological thriller, where the protagonist turns his greatest weapon against himself. Let's map out this brilliant, time-delayed trap. We are 24 hours prior to the warehouse meeting. Light sits alone in the dark, recognizing that the variables are dangerously tight. So instead of trusting Mikami's fragile routine, he orchestrates a flawless, automated execution document. First, he programs Mikami to go into deep hiding. Then, he rigs a hidden piece of the Death Note to an automated timer, mailed to a secure dead drop system. This is set to burn to ash exactly 7 days after the warehouse meeting. But on that scrap, he writes the names of Nier and the entire SPK, specifying their deaths to occur exactly 30 days later. It is a brilliant, inescapable fire-and-forget mechanism. The trap is perfectly set.
And then comes the eerie, almost reality-breaking moment. Light looks at the Shinigami, Ryuk, and utters 3 simple words. I forfeit ownership. In an instant, the sinister, calculating persona of Kira is stripped away entirely. The heavy, crimson-red lighting of his ambition fades into soft, natural daylight. The mass murderer essentially dies right there in that room, leaving behind only a genuinely innocent, righteous detective with perfectly clean eyes, someone entirely oblivious to the monumental scheme he has just set in motion.
We can call this the permanent wipe. It isn't just a temporary ruse like we saw much earlier in the series. No, it is the irreversible erasure of all notebook-related memories and homicidal intent. He transforms a ruthless god into a genuinely innocent pawn. It is the absolute ultimate tactical sacrifice. He essentially murders his own ego to ensure the survival of his new world, proving that his most dangerous weapon was always his ability to manipulate himself.
Section 3. The psychological deadlock. The invisible mask.
This leads us directly into the dread and clinical, isolated tension of the yellow box warehouse. The stark white lights pressing in. Nier sits on the floor, flanked by the SBK and the Japanese task force, expecting a deadly trap that simply never comes. We have a striking juxtaposition here. On one side, the architect, Kira's hidden automated plan ticking away unseen in the background. On the other side, the pawn, the genuinely innocent Light Yagami, standing right in front of Nier, utterly confused and genuinely offended by the accusations. This establishes an absolutely unwinnable psychological deadlock.
Watch how this interrogation plays out. The pacing here is rapid. It's a fast, rhythmic, ticking clock intensity. Nier pushes hard, presenting every piece of circumstantial evidence he has meticulously gathered over the years. But Light, his genius intellect completely unclouded by Kira's arrogance, dismantles the arguments instantly and rationally. He demands a lie detector test, he requests truth serum, he actively offers himself up for solitary confinement. Nier, the ultimate human lie detector, searches frantically, desperately, for a single micro-expression of hidden guilt. But he finds absolutely nothing. The frustration mounts. The meticulous profiler is staring at a blank wall, unable to comprehend that the mastermind he is hunting simply does not exist in the mind of the man standing before him.
Nier suffers a total, agonizing defeat here. Bound by his own strict rules of investigation and an absolute lack of hard, tangible evidence, he is eventually forced to let a perfectly innocent Light go. You just cannot break a mask that is no longer there. The defense is entirely impenetrable because it isn't an act. Light genuinely believes he is innocent, making him the most convincing liar in human history.
Section 4. A tragic utopia. The mechanical verdict.
The immediate tension of the warehouse is over, but the trap is still quietly ticking toward its terrifying conclusion. 30 days later. No dramatic monologue, no screaming declarations of godhood, just the terrifying autonomy of the notebook doing exactly what it was programmed to do. Nier, playing quietly with his dice in his solitary space, suffers a sudden, understated heart attack. The cold, mechanical efficiency of the Death Note claims him, and the rest of the SPK, without a single drop of dramatic flair. It is a clinical, inevitable execution.
The automated trap springs flawlessly. Nier and the SBK perish. Light Yagami, the sole survivor, is hailed as a hero by the very system he once sought to control, and naturally inherits the mantle of L. He dedicates his life to hunting Kira. Over the years, the deterrent effect of Kira's past actions, combined with Light's unparalleled detective work, takes firm hold. Crime drops to zero. World wars cease entirely. Kira achieves a flawless, absolute ideological victory. It is, by all definitions, a perfect world.
So, the crucial takeaway here is a deep, haunting philosophical paradox. The man who rules the perfect world doesn't even know he is the king. By relinquishing his memories permanently, Light conquers his own massive ego to win the war. But the absolute cost was his conscious godhood. He sacrificed his awareness, his ability to revel in his own victory, just to guarantee his vision would actually come to pass.
This transforms the entire narrative into a living psychological hell. Picture it, an older, fiercely righteous Light Yagami dedicating his entire life, poring over red string conspiracy boards late into the night, desperately trying to catch a mass murderer who has seemingly vanished. He is utterly unaware that the ghost he is furiously chasing is his own forgotten shadow. It is a Sisyphean punishment. He's essentially cursed to push a boulder up a hill for the rest of his life, hunting a phantom entity that can never truly be caught because it simply doesn't exist anymore.
And of course, we cannot forget the ultimate wild card in this perfect system, Ryuk, a peaceful world without crime where the main character is just sitting at a desk doing endless paperwork. Well, that inevitably gets boring for a god of death. After a few years of watching Light chase his own tail, Ryuk would inevitably sigh, pull out his pen, and unceremoniously write Light's name down. It's a quiet, pathetic end for a man who died truly believing he was a hero saving the world, never knowing the monstrous truth of his own past.
Section 5. The final verdict. The cost of divinity.
We've explored the brutal ironies of psychological sacrifice versus pathetic human defeat. Winning the war, but entirely losing the self. It completely reframes the narrative, from a thriller about a boy with a god complex into a haunting meditation on what divinity actually costs. So I want to leave you with this final unresolved thought to ponder. Would Light's massive ego ever truly allow him to permanently give up his memories and his crown? Or was this terrifying, self-inflicted amnesia the absolute only way to truly beat Nier and achieve his perfect world? Let that sit with you. Thank you for joining me on this explainer here at ReWritten. If you want to dive deeper into the Shinigami realm and unravel more incredible narratives with us, make sure to subscribe. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative,